record, but that announcement. And so, anyways, Dr. Eid, please, the floor is yours.
Tyler, is this what you wanted to say about the recording or something else?
The recording, the court recording is done.
Okay. Well, very happy to be here to and meet everyone. And Jeff, Tyler, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity of being in this room. Jeff has been big inspiration of mine since the day we met and continues to inspire me. And he's a friend and a brother. So happy to be here. Can you hear me well? Okay, so Jeff asked me yesterday, what's your plan for tomorrow? And my plan is basically to look at the screen, see everyone's face, and see what I can come up with. So you would do me a tremendous help if you can. Well, thank you, Pierre. Pierre immediately got the message. If you can go on camera, just allow me to see you for a moment. I have nothing planned today other than a heart-to-heart conversation and sharing what I've learned having met with thousands of leaders from different parts of the world and been involved in understanding personality, researching personality. So just a quick introduction. My background is in neuroscience and behavioral genetics, but I originally come from a corporate background. And I had the chance to study science after my industry background, which allowed me to mix both the corporate world with the scientific world. So I've done a lot of research on personality at the workplace. I am a senior researcher at Cambridge University, and I have been running the DNA of Leadership program since 2013. And I got the chance through this program to receive and talk to delegates, leaders from different parts of the world, helping them better understand certain parts of their personality that we as human beings tend to forget. And this is, I would like to start there, talk just for a little while and give more chance for us to have a conversation and hear from you and address your questions. So what I've been doing is really researching what our personality is made of and how does that influence who we are as human beings today. And basically, to summarize this, what the science shows is that our personality is made of several components that interact with each other. But the main ones would be everything we inherit through our genetics, which define our talents, our innate drivers and motivators, and our propensities or predispositions in life. And I'm going to give some examples. The second component would be the way our brains are wired through upbringing, learning, etc., cultural influence, and so on. And the third would be our cognitive ability to learn and acquire these skills and adapt our behaviors to the environments or the contexts and the relationships that we put ourselves in. But we reach a stage in our lives, usually around the age that we all have here, and we start questioning whether who we've become in life actually aligns with who we are. And we start noticing this because we realize that our level of energy is much higher when we're doing certain things, and it drops. Suddenly we're doing other things. It gets high when we are with certain types of people, and then we get demotivated being with other types of people. And energy is always the greatest indicator of motivation. Now, where does motivation come from? Basically, there's a lot of things around us that can motivate or demotivate. And these are extrinsic, external motivators that happen all the time. This is happening, could be happening right now. I could be motivating some of you with what I'm about to say and bore some of you if I'm not doing a good job. That's an example. But there are other motivators that are silent and are hidden inside each one of us. And these are written in our genetic blueprint. And to give you a good example of that, music talent would be one of them. Someone might be born with a musical talent, but never had the chance to learn music. So they find themselves always like interested in music, wanting to learn music someday, but probably never had the chance to do it. So in terms of competency today, if we give them a guitar and say, can you play something for me? We wouldn't be able to tell whether they're musical or not. But their DNA would always show that music talent is there. And that's what our genes do. They never define our level of competency or skill in life, but they define a talent. And by definition, a talent is the level of motivation we have when we learn a skill. So two children learning music, one is talented, the other one is not talented. Both can learn and will eventually be able to play music, but the talented one will be able to enjoy learning the music. And that's by definition what our genetics do. And this applies to every single aspect of our personality traits. Human beings have 446 possible human traits, out of which every single one of them has a level of genetic influence. Absolutely any behavior or trait you can think of, we're born with a certain propensity towards that, and the rest is acquired. Things like leadership, like communication, like sociability, like assertiveness, like confidence, like you just name absolutely any random trait. And our genes play a role in how ready are we towards that behavior. So what I've done is I've created the world's first triangulation of 3 data sets. What a actual DNA test says about somebody's propensities, what a brain assessment says about the way their brains prefer thinking, and how do they show up today in life and at work, which is who they've learned to become. An example of that is we all know someone who is super calm. And for us, if we're asked about that person, we say they are a calm person. But if we test their genes, they actually might not have a propensity towards being calm. They might have high emotion sensibility, etc., high neuroticism in their genes, but life has taught them to need to behave in a calm way, and they've acquired the skill of calmness. But for us, we label this person, or we react, or we deal with this person as a calm person, not knowing that there might be a different motivator hidden behind them. And I'm hoping that this resonates with you. Can you think of something that you do very well, at least publicly, but deep down, you know that you're exercising quite a bit of effort when you do that? Another example of this would be someone who's extremely sociable when they are at a conference, but after the conference, they go home, they lock themselves in, and that do not want to be with another person until their energy level rises again. That's because genetically, they have a lower social propensity, but in terms of competency, they've learned the sociability skills. And this is what I have been doing. I've been for many years carrying this flag and having this purpose and mission of reminding each one of us that who we are is not necessarily who we have become. And our purpose in life and our motivation in life is always connected to what we were born with. The message here is we have heard enough in our lives about what is missing in us and what still needs to develop. And we sometimes say it with a lot of pride that I have a growth mindset and I want to keep learning and keep growing, etc. And that's an amazing thing. It's a beautiful human thing to adapt, learn, and grow. But what if this growth is actually completely outside of what we were meant to become? Or what actually aligns with who we are? What if each one of us has the chance to actually develop in areas of their own talent, of what lights them up from inside? Wouldn't that be logically more aligned with how life was supposed to be lived? And after 127,000 DNA tests, I learned something very important. Most of who we have become today, the people I have surveyed, when they are asked about specific behaviors they have today, these behaviors have mainly been developed as a function of what a certain environment they chose to be in, like a job or a context or relationships have required from them. Why do you behave in a certain way? My wife doesn't like it when I behave differently. My parents told me to do this. My boss doesn't like it when and we end up developing these skills. But do these really align with your own energy, with what you want to be, the impact you want to leave? So I have been studying this for quite some time, and I realized that most of our behaviors are acquired mostly outside of our nature. And also, when you look at our genetic motivators, you will see that each one of us actually has so much to offer in this world, a lot of uniqueness, a lot of greatness, and a great deal of talent that we might actually have not yet tapped into. Things like sports talent, like musical talent, like talent in mathematics, in leadership, etc. We've just been busy developing things, and we take all the credit for being able to develop all these things, but haven't really touched what actually exists in us, but might have been focusing on developing what does not exist but could be developed. And with the transformation I see when I help people reconnect with themselves, is that people continue that growth journey, but start paying some attention to the parts of themselves that they might have left behind or they might have forgotten. This is who each one of us was when we were children, and all the dreams we had that we might have achieved or might have forgotten. And when we reconnect with these, you realize that life starts flowing in a totally different direction and in a more meaningful and purposeful direction. And all the questions that we at our middle age, we start asking, have I studied the right thing? Am I with the right person? Am I in the right job, etc.? We start finding answers to why is it that I feel misaligned where I am? Or where is that inner voice coming from? What is it trying to remind me? And the last thing I want to say is that the older we get, that voice is not going to go away. It's only going to get louder. And that's the voice of our nature reminding us of who we are. Because we are the closest to who we are when we were just born and just before we die. You find people who have accumulated a number of years starting to care less about what others think, dress the way they want, sit the way they want, say what they want, and just be themselves. And children do the same. It is us during those years that are trying to fit in these relationships and these environments that we chose to be in. So this is my only message I have for you today is it's an invitation for each one of you to address these questions if you're asking them internally about, am I in the right relationship? Am I in the right job? And so on. And science has gone very far into giving us very valid and solid indicators of why do we have these questions and how to reconnect with who we are. Does it make sense? That's it. I'm happy to talk. Thank you for listening.
I love it. I love it. Here's an opportunity. I haven't been looking at the chat because I've been engrossed with what you've been saying here, Dr. Eid. Um, but what I have been saying these last, we started at the very, very beginning of January and have just shared some of the foundational things to help us, live that life on purpose. Instead of being acted upon, we're acting. And in order to act and live the life that we want to, we need to know what we want. We need to know what that dream is. We need to know what motivates us. We need to know what lights us up inside, that song that sings inside our soul. And so Ty asks, how do we connect those dots? How do we connect those dots with who we are genetically, who we've become socially, and how do we connect those dots?
It's a good question. Thank you. Well, I can give you a personal experience.
Please.
I've spent most of my life thinking that my developed intuition is something that I need to change about myself. I remember how active I was at forcing myself to be more analytical, give myself a bit of time to think before acting, not be impulsive, even called myself judgmental when I felt the energy of other people. And I ended up with 2 PhDs because of my quest to become more analytical, 2 very agonizing PhD experiences. Until the day came where I realized that everything that I had been trying to change in myself were my actual talents, were my gift that I can only embrace and accept. And from that day, I said, you know what? I'm not hiding my intuition anymore. I'm just going to let people know what I think or what I feel when I see them. And it led to me being on a journey, a blessed journey of helping thousands of people because I've embraced my intuition as who I am. And this would be my answer to you. One is listening to the inner voice. That inner voice is the only one saying the truth. Everyone else is saying what works for them. It's your inner voice that is guiding you. 2, use the science. The science is there to help. Like for instance, I do this genetic test called Meet Yourself. I send an actual swab collection kit and take a saliva sample, and I could literally analyze your DNA and let you know what are the propensities you were born with. Were you born with a genetic propensity towards analytical thinking, towards sociability, emotional intelligence, leadership, communication, etc.? And now when you see this and you compare it with the way you behave today, you will start understanding the why behind why is it that my energy drops when I'm working on certain tasks? Why is it that I feel more motivated when I'm working on other tasks, etc.? And that awareness is only part of the equation. The other part is how can I honor these insights and apply them to my life? Because the exercise here is not to change our lives completely and change the way we behave. We've become who we are today for a reason, for a lot of reasons. But this would be an invitation to understand why. Why is it that there's this internal tension? Why is it that there's a drop of energy? And how can I compensate for that by doing something in parallel that can actually help me balance my energy out? And the third and most important is how can I leverage other people around me to help me compensate for my lack of motivation in certain things. That's when we work in relationships, when we are in relationships and we work in teams. That's basically the work I have been doing with teams and on relationships, is to really help people stop trying to change each other and instead accept that diversity, not verbally, but really understand that my partner is a different human being and will always think differently than me. How can we put these two together in order to create something bigger? Freud calls that the narcissism of small differences. Have you heard of this term before? It's an interesting concept how we cross paths with people in the street. They don't mean anything to us. Maximum, we notice their the way they dress, etc., and then a few seconds later we forget them. We have nothing in common with these people. We don't share similar values, etc. We don't know nothing about. But when we are with other people in teams and in relationships, we share values, we share high-level big things, but start noticing all the small things, and these small things become the reason for conflict. She smells bad, he doesn't dress well, he doesn't, which are things we wouldn't notice and wouldn't stop at with a stranger, but we do when we are in an intimate relationship. Even though we have great alignment on big things. And this is the exercise here, is realizing that life is made of this diversity. Life would be so boring if it has one color and if everything smells and looks the same. What makes it beautiful is all this diversity. But we end up thinking that this diversity causes conflict because it does not resemble us. So I have been working with teams and couples on helping them appreciate the fact that the other person thinks differently, is motivated differently, but how can we actually work better together? Have I answered your question, Tyler?
Yes, perfectly, and exactly what I needed to hear. So thank you.
Thank you.
Who else? What other questions do you have for Dr. Eid? Here's an opportunity to allow him to kind of like one of Dr. Eid's gifts is that he can look through the camera and if he's in the same room, to look beyond the facade and just go inside. Go inside and touch that thing that lights you up and to kind of push aside the masks that we are wearing and the labels that have been put on us. And he's able to ask the right questions, the questions that are like that help you discover. And so, Pierre, please, what is your question?
Well, my question is actually I have two questions, but I'll take one first and then I'll skip it over to someone else. How do you know what um, um, if it's in your DNA or if it's a skill that you've or a personality that you've learned? And does it really matter if you know if it's in your DNA or not?
Good
I
question.
love the question. There's two parts for that question. Let me answer the second one first.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Not really. What matters is us being happy and enjoying our lives. So how do we get there doesn't really matter. Whether we do a DNA test or we don't do, that's secondary. When knowing becomes important is when someone isn't feeling fulfilled where they are, or is trying to find their purpose, or is demotivated, burnt out, stressed where they are, then this can become a useful way of finding out. Now, how do you know? Basically, our personality as human beings is much more complicated than being fully understood by any science that exists. But we got as close as possible by considering 3 different data sets at the same time. So the DNA test will give you the genetic propensity, and I'm going to give an example about this now. And then we do another behavioral assessment that shows how do you behave in the present day. And then we do an alignment exercise between them. We compare what was I born with who I have become, to see whether there are areas where you actually align with who you are and other areas where there's a difference. In why did that difference happen? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example of this, of how the genetics thing work. Let's play a little game. Okay. Can you raise hands if you have a dog at home? All right. So let me give you random dog breeds, and you tell me the first personality characteristic that you can think of when you think of that dog. Golden Retriever.
Loyal.
Yes.
Hungry.
Tyler.
Yes. Pointer.
Dog hunter.
Hunter.
Bird hunter.
Yes. Yes. Let's say the Rottweiler.
Middle.
Tough.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you notice we're just describing certain characteristics, personality traits for dogs? And these breeds, actually, there has been a lot of behavioral genetics work behind these breeds to actually breed dogs that look exactly the same and have similar personality traits. So our genes not only influence how we look physically, but they also influence certain propensities. Now, having said that, a Rottweiler is a guard dog, but it doesn't mean that they will start guarding as soon as they're born. The Pointer is a hunting dog. They will not start hunting when they're born. The missing piece here is they still need to learn to do it. However, if we teach the Rottweiler to guard, it will do it naturally. This is what it was bred to do. If we teach a Pointer to hunt or to point, it's going to do it. Can we teach a Pointer to guard? Probably. And it will do it, but you will feel that it's really pushing itself. Coming back from work demotivated every day. So imagine that we're actually in a similar situation. That we learn things in life and we go to work and we do them extremely well, but we realize that there's something missing. This does not really align with me. And this is all I'm saying here. I'm saying if you feel that, there is a reason. And maybe you need to check whether what does this internal engine saying about you?
Great question. Great question. Can I share an example too, Dr. Eid?
Yes, I just want to let Clayton know that his smile is giving me a beautiful energy. Thank you.
All I ever want to do.
Thank you.
and again, we'll come back to your questions as well. But Pierre, you asked the question: does it really matter? Does it really matter? Because if we can learn to be competent, does it really matter what our genes say, or does it really matter where we come from? As long as we're competent at that. You guys might have heard of the company called Intel. The Intel processing chip was introduced to the world by by my business partner and friend of mine, and 26 years or so ago. Very, very smart individual. His dad was a POW in World War II, and his mom was on the spectrum, and so he was raised and he received love by how smart he was and how good of grades he accomplished and whatnot. And so here we have this individual who has learned to be very, very competent in being smart and intelligent. In his 60s, we gave him this test that Dr. Eid um, has put together, this DNA test, and we let him take that test. And when it came back, when the results came back, we're like, okay, you know, while we're waiting for the DNA test to show up, we can work on the competency assessment and the behavioral assessment, how you behave and how you think. Um, and you know, and so finally the DNA test assessment shows up, and we just simply ask the question, what do you observe? What do you observe with your DNA results? And when the personality assessment test came back prior to the DNA, there was no doubt that he was very high left brain. He was a reasoner. He was an accomplisher. He was very intellectual. And there was like no questions. Like, no, I didn't learn anything new that I didn't know already. But when the DNA test came back, he looked at it and he noticed something that he had always felt inside him his whole life, but he was so confused because he wasn't encouraged to lean into that. He wasn't encouraged to do that. But all he knew, as soon as he identified that and saw that, his shoulders start to move slowly,
Mm.
and then the slow moving of his shoulders become more and more intense as he's sobbing. He is just literally sobbing because he has identified and realized, he's like, oh my gosh, my whole life I've wanted to be social. My whole life I've felt this tendency to lean into that social area of my life, but I didn't know how, and I wasn't encouraged to do so. And he's like, so instantly he was able to identify that disconnect that he had been experiencing his whole life, at least for 60 years. And now he has a tool to where he's like, okay, now I can lean into this. Now I can start to develop um, the competency in that social area. But it was such a beautiful experience to be a part of, to just allow this person to meet himself 60 years later.
Yeah, I remember that day.
Yeah.
I remember. And it's just an example of how uh, what we see in other people leads to the way we interact with them. And it becomes almost a responsibility to really understand what's behind this. There are different motivators behind each one of us. You know what I'm talking about. You know how closer we are to our nature after work hours, and how during work hours we're dressed in that persona that will help us survive that day. And that persona has amazing skills that we've acquired over the years. There's nothing wrong with these competencies. They're actually absolutely amazing. But are they the same as I'm talking about that same colleague of yours that you have always thought they were not fun, etc. And then you meet them 2 days later, 2 years later in a pub. You think, they're actually quite fun. They're different. It's because over there they were more themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Other questions? Other questions? We have a few more minutes with Dr. Eid. Pierre, I know you had another question coming up here. I know that Anthony Sullivan, you had a question for Dr. Eid as well. Clayton, you're unmuted, and so I don't know if you're like locked and loaded, ready to ask that question. He's like, nope, mute. I do not have a question. He's like, I'm going to mute myself immediately. And Felita over there, she's like, oh yes, I know what Clayton's thinking, but I've got a question myself. So don't be shy. Don't be shy to ask your questions here. And so I know we have at least two here. Pierre, is that a follow-up question? Um, Pierre, let's go to you and have you ask your question, and then Anthony Sullivan, I want you to ask yours too.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you how to find some personality or skills that are hidden in myself. Do you have any way to find them?
Yes, Pierre. So the DNA test would reveal these 54 different tenets, and you will see through after the DNA sequencing a score for each one of them. That would be the gene expression and the genetic propensity towards these. And the higher the score gets, the bigger the indicator that this is an area in you that is a talent or a potential that you could actually develop by acquiring the relevant skills.
Yeah. But I mean, if you can feel it in yourself, maybe it could be a hidden
That's correct.
personality. Yeah. If
So
you feel
feeling it,
something is missing.
yes, absolutely. This is the number one indicator, but sometimes that voice is influenced by social values, cultural values, etc., what other people have told you you should be. So it's not always telling us the truth.
No.
And it can be biased. Our genes are never biased. You take your DNA test today and after 50 years, and you will get the exact same result. That's the one big difference.
Thanks.
Thanks, Pierre. Anthony Sullivan, what's your question?
What is one widely accepted belief about the brain that you think will be completely overturned in the next 20 years?
I love the question. I can immediately think of a few, both genetic and brain-based. One is we already know that the myth of we use a small percentage of our brain is a myth. We actually use 100% of our brains. We just use our brains at different frequencies, different preferences. We all have our own thinking preferences. But that myth of Einstein uses 10, 12% and we use less is completely wrong. Another myth is that brainstorming leads to great ideas. Not really. Brainstorming works well with social thinkers, but actually is counterproductive with analytical thinkers who prefer introspection and thinking, processing internally. So put them in a group and we will get less ideas from them. Another brain myth that I can think of is that we have 5 senses. We actually have 21 senses. Did you know we have 21 senses? Divided into 9 categories. Pain is a sense, body temperature is a sense, blood pressure is a sense. We've got 21 senses in total, out of which 5 are commonly known. What else? One last, and that's a question for you. How much of our genetics, or our DNA, do we share as human beings? Here in this room.
With each other?
With each other. Take a guess.
Put your guess in your chat, or you can throw it out there to everybody out loud. That means you have to unmute yourself in order to do that. But take a guess. What percentage of DNA do we share with each other?
65. Clayton is higher, much higher. 90. You're getting closer, Tyler. We share 50% of our DNA with the banana. 97% of our DNA with the monkey. And 99.7% of our DNA with each other. We are 99.7% similar and only 0.3% different. Can you imagine? All these shapes, all these conflicts in the world, all these wars, all these misunderstandings. And we have more reasons to be working well together than being in conflict. But that 0.3% is not a small thing. It's millions of genetic variants that define the color of our skin, our hair, etc., and also our personality predispositions.
Yeah.
Yes.
So much more alike than we are different, but the differences are extreme at times. The contrast is like it's beautiful. But again, it's like I always talk about shift. Shift happens. You got to flip the switch and reframe things because sometimes we've been taught to look at it in a scarcity mindset, in a this we're going to be destroyed mindsets, and we can shift that to where it's like, no, there's an abundance and there's things that are going to work out. It's just going to work out. And you're like, okay, how do we do that? So it's beautiful. I love that. So yeah, Clayton, your first guess, we were, 60% was closer to the banana than what it actually was. Did anyone it was like mind blowing. You're like, oh my gosh, really? Banana, 50%? We have the same. And then 97% the same as a monkey. That's why, there's that debate that's out there. But 99.7, how beautiful is that to know how similar we are instead of how different we are? Gina, please, what's your question?
So I find that I'm like in that space right now. Like I felt called to do something and I never felt prepared or ready. And it's just now that I'm stepping into it and being like, okay, just because I don't feel prepared or ready, I'll prepare myself for what my heart is calling me to. So I'm in that process right now. However, I have a question. I have a almost 21-year-old and almost 19-year-old, and they lack motivation and they lack direction and where they want to go, but they are both geniuses. They are so incredibly bright. They have so many skills and they're just kind of lost at where they want. Would a genetic test like this help them along that path of figuring out things?
Absolutely. As long as this information is not used to determine what they cannot do in life, because they can absolutely learn and do anything they want.
Yeah.
But instead be used to help them identify their talents, which you have obviously been doing since they were born, is to try to help them find their talents, except that we did a lot of hit and miss and trial and error. But this will indicate that there are certain areas that if they develop there, they would actually be more motivated, for sure. And remember one thing, Gina, Einstein says the only thing interfering with my knowledge is my education. One of the biggest obstacles in our children's lives is us and what we want for them. So it's more allowing them to experiment, discover. This is the fastest way to learn, is for them to make the mistakes and end up making their own choices.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing, is allowing that. And I'm just like, I would love to give them a guideline to be able to explore further, because I know if they found that passion and they saw that within themselves, that they would be able to go for that. So how do we get a hold of doing that genetic test, just out of curiosity?
I think Tyler or Jeff can add the website. You can go there and purchase a test. And what I can do for this group is, if you purchase the test, just let my team know. They will get in touch with you. Just let them know that we met through this meeting, and I will personally walk you through the results. We can do a one-on-one session together.
Great question, Gina. And by the way, Gina, how cool would that be, right? I've been working with some high schoolers and some freshmen advisors on college campuses. So how cool would that be to know what your genetic propensities are, before going to college and taking all these courses and doing all these things and paying all this money just to find out later on that you get to the top of the mountain and you're like, you know what? Never mind. They all lied. They all lied. But how cool would that be to just to be able to have that blueprint of saying, this is what lights you up genetically. You can lean into it or you don't have to lean into it. It can be whatever you want to, whatever you want to do. And so anyway, if you know of any high school principals or administrators, superintendents, and freshman college people, please let us know because I think we could fast track and help these individuals get to where they really truly want to, be in their lives. And so that they can then like, okay, genetically, this is what you're predisposed with. Here's some of the courses that we offer. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, now that feels right. That seems right. I can go into it with a little bit more confidence. So, anyways, I love the fact that you're thinking about your kids, Gina. You're 21-year-old and you're a 19-year-old. That is fantastic and amazing. Clayton, please share with us, brother, the man who has the smile that warms up Dr. Eid.
So, just to let everybody know, I retired from corporate work in July of last year, and I made the decision that day or that week that I was only going to do stuff I wanted to do, and I was going to learn to want to do the things I had to do. But nevertheless, I just decided that in my work, I was going to focus on making people happy. That's all I want to do. And so I decided that I wasn't going to go and I used to do cybersecurity, high-end technical work and talking with all these people and all this deep stuff and everything. And they didn't want to hear it. Anyway, so I just decided I was going to go and focus on how can I make people happier in my life and in their lives. How can we just make people happier? And that's all I decided I do. And because of that, then my life becomes so much happier. I decided I'll wear colorful clothes instead of boring corporate clothes. I'm gonna, do what I want to do because it's so freeing and so enjoyable. And truthfully, Dr. That's where the smile comes from, is helping people be happy. And every day, every way. So
That's amazing. Imagine if we can just feel like that every day.
Yeah.
This is how we were meant to live. We were not meant to live in concrete and we're not meant to work for other people. We were meant to live happy.
Yeah. Anthony Sullivan and Clayton, you two need to connect. I think there's some things that you can help Anthony Sullivan out with that you've experienced, Clayton. I love that. You guys, my 2-year-old son taught me a valuable lesson. He's like, there's short hours and long hours. That blew my mind. I'm like, you're right. There are short hours and long hours. And I wanted to know what a long hour was to my 2-year-old son. And I asked him, I'm like, Bradley, what's a short hour? Without hesitating, he's like, church. Sorry. I'm like, what's a long hour? Without hesitating, he's like, church. And I'm like, okay, church is a long hour for a lot of us. Absolutely. I get that. So I'm like, well, what's a short hour? And he's like, Pokemon. This has been a short hour for me. And every time I get onto one of these calls, I'm like, you know what? I spend way too much time to, introducing the person and welcoming you in here. And maybe it's not too much time because I just love that. I love the fact that you guys could be 100 different places and you spend some time with us. Hopefully your time with Dr. Eid was as valuable as it was for me. I've heard Dr. Eid speak dozens of times, and I learned something new each time. And he has this gift of being able to open it up and welcome you into the community where you're like, you know what, I will turn on my camera. I will unmute myself. I will ask a question. I will be better. I am going to chase down my dream. I'm going to lean into who I am. And Dr. Eid, thank you so much for spending some time with us. if they want to get a hold of you, where is the best place and best way to do that?
My LinkedIn profile, I can paste here the link, or meetyourself.me. I think Tyler already shared. And if you are on a leadership development journey, join me in Cambridge. Take you for a 7-day retreat where we do your DNA genetic testing and all the tests before you arrive to Cambridge in the UK. And for 5 days, we do a powerful alignment exercise on helping you align with who you are. I really want to see happy people everywhere, just like Clayton. And Clayton has given us the secret, is going back to the thing that lights you up the most.
I love it. LinkedIn was probably yeah, either or. So any last comments or questions before we go? We've got like 30 seconds left before we don't have to stop at 11, but that's the time. We start at 10 and we end at 11. But anybody have any last parting words or questions for Dr. Eid? Okay. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
for your time. And Dr. Eid, thank you again for showing up and shining your light
Thank you for
and giving to this world. Thank you.
thank you.
See you
Bye.
guys. See you next
Thank you
week.
so much.